Good evening and welcome to the Galloway Township Board of Education meeting this 14th of April 2014. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Baker? Here. Mr. Carmen? Here. Mr. Davis? Here. Mrs. Stevenson? Here. Mrs. Holloway?
Here.
Mr. Noor? Here. Mr. Schwanger?
Here.
Mrs. Cordera?
Here.
Mr. Rugg?
Here. At this time, I'd ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by our John Noor, fresh from Florida. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In accordance with Public Law 231, notice of this meeting was provided to the press, the current, and the Galloway Township Municipal Building on the 11th of January 2014. Reading and communication, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President Hubbard. We have no communications this evening.
Presentation, please.
Yes, I'm going to move to item 2, which is the park pilot testing presentation. And here with us this evening to make that presentation are 2 of our supervisors, one of whom among her many responsibilities is district test coordinator, and that's Marilyn Noor, and one of whom among her many responsibilities is the park technology coordinator, Betty Napoli. So I'm going to turn the agenda over to Ms. Moore and Mrs. Napoli.
As Annette said, we worked very closely together on that. So even when it came to separating the slides, it was, oh, I know as much about this one as I do the next, but we did trade down on the technical ones, better than doing all the technical ones. So we finished our first round of pilots, the PPAs, and we were Arthur Graham in grade 4 for English Language Arts, Smithville in grade 5 for English Language Arts, and Rowan grade 6 for math. And I got to tell you, the children loved it. We have 2 more rounds after the ASK testing of Smithville grade 5 for ELA and middle school grade 8 for math. Middle school grade 8 already did NAEP, they're going to do ASK, so we'll see how they're doing when this comes along. Because it's an online test, there's lots of security involved here, as you can imagine. We had to update the test security plan and obtain signatures from everybody involved, from the tech guys to the principals, to the assistant principals, to the secretaries, anybody who would have been near the room during the testing. In order to determine users, we met with the principals and the assistant principals and other curriculum supervisors and talked about, based on the grade levels the state gave us, who would be the students and who would be the teachers that would really give us some good feedback about the testing and how the children did. So we selected students, we selected teachers as a group. We went in and looked at the children's IEPs and identified the special ed accommodations that these children have. And actually, Park's interesting in that some of the modifications only special ed children have had so far, such as extra time, everybody has them. Everybody has time and a half. The other thing that's interesting is once you place their IEP accommodations into the software, they get a test tailored to those accommodations, rather than us running around making sure the right kids have the calculators, the right ones have the line readers. Their test comes up with all of it. We uploaded all this information, sent it to Park a few times to a girl and clicked on a Friday afternoon. We configured the classrooms, the students and teachers that were being tested, and then notified parents and guardians by letter. No hesitation, no I have to say, the teachers did a phenomenal job of thinking the children want some kind of reward. When we went to talk to the children before we tested about exactly what they're doing, and we asked them, do you know why you're here? He said, yes, because we wanted a chance to do this. So they were very excited. And then each child got a little sheet of paper with their individual sign in and log in so that they could take a test. It's test time, so here's Betty.
In addition to getting everything ready from kind of a user perspective, there was some hardware and software upgrades and things we needed to take care of. There were specific system checks that Park gave us, and we went through each machine that was going to be used for testing and conducted those system checks. Some of them included sample users that they had to log in, try some of the questions to make sure that everything was done properly. We needed to install some specific software on the machines. The iPad needed a specific app installed, and the machines themselves needed to be locked down. We tested that in a variety of different ways. Initially, we put extensive lockdowns on the machines, even so much as locking down the rooms so no one could go back into the room later in the day until the whole test was done, to trying to see how well the system itself, or the software itself, locked down without any additional lockdown capabilities from us. And we did find, on a positive note, that the software designed by Pearson did provide good enough lockdown capabilities that we did not need to lock down the machines after hours. So after the test is done, students at other grade levels would be able to utilize these same machines for other purposes beyond testing. Especially considering next year, the plan is that there will be 2 different windows of 20 days each that will involve using this hardware, that we want kids to be able to access them when they're not being used during testing. There was even a server that needed to be set up specially to be able to bring down the software so that it didn't impact bandwidth as much. And we did test using that software, and that worked very, very well. In addition to all the setup pieces of information, we went through and we had to train the teachers. They needed to understand what the format was going to look like. We talked to them about security. We needed to help them understand what tools were available and even some basic troubleshooting. And some of that were things we had to learn on the fly. They had many different documents that were extensive, over 100 pages of explanation, but until you really got in there and did it, so to speak, we weren't sure how the troubleshooting would work. And then we went and actually taught the kids. We had them come learn all the specific pieces of the software and understand some things for the questions. I wanted to take a minute and show you, but I'm going to keep it from that. I'm going to have to get out of this for a second. Well, I can sit down so people can sit. There's a website that has extensive information about practice tests, and I'm not going to go through the whole test, but I just wanted to show you a quick glimpse at 2 different grade levels, one for ELA and one for math. So students had to get used to being able to scroll through different passages. They had the ability to highlight things and change the color and color code them. There were special accommodations that allowed for something called a line reader. So if that was something that was useful to students, they could take advantage of that. What was interesting, we showed the students this once, and a couple weeks later, they just remembered to click up here and choose that if they wanted to use it. It was very impressive. So some questions are kind of basic multiple choice questions that they would have seen in the past, but we click through a couple. Sometimes they actually had to pick something and drag it down in different areas based on evidence and in this case, the narrator's feeling about something. So there were different skills that they needed to take advantage of and use, and they hadn't used in the past. There were times when they had to click between two different stories and type the response and actually create a little essay. One thing that teachers were especially nervous about prior to the pilot was that our kids, especially as young as 8 years old, aren't the best keyboarders at this point. All in all, with the time allotted, students did very well, and I didn't see anyone in the pilot purely hunting and pecking. It absolutely is a skill we need to continue to work on, and we have plans in place that we're continuing to talk about so that kids become more proficient, and a lot of the devices we'll be purchasing so that they exist in every classroom that's tested for next year will help. But all in all, it was a very positive experience. The kids actually liked the typing. There's even some questions that had video clips in them as well, where they had to analyze the video, and that was a favorite. So that's the ELA. And just very quickly for math, I wanted to be able to show you 6th grade examples, since we did 6th grade. They have to learn how to use special tools. They have to be able to type a fraction, and they need to know to click on this and then type, and I'm just thinking about the fraction. I'm not positive this is the right answer. I'm not looking at the question. So they need to be able to utilize these special tools that are not custom to what they're used to. So we'll be doing more and more instruction on this. And they actually have to decide if something is true or false based on the information given, or if they don't have enough information, and drag different pieces. Some of their basic computation, still that they've always done in the past. Sometimes there's more than one answer, which is something new. Kids liked the fact that you could have an answer eliminator and then focus on specific ones. If they weren't sure, they could eliminate certain answers and then kind of go back to certain ones. They could also flag a question to go back to later. And then when they went to review, and if I click flag, only the flagged question shows up. So they can focus on just the questions that they had flagged and then go right back to it. And the information that they put there stays. They thought that was fun too. I'm just going to jump through. Whoops. There's some where they had to take a fraction and be able to put it in the right spot and drag. So it's going much beyond traditional multiple choice and just regular open-ended questions. There are other types of questions that I've never seen before. They might have to make a graph and slide something and then write something about that graph. They've had reference sheets in the past. Now the reference sheet is something they have to click on and be able to look at when they need to. And kids need to make decisions about what's the best tool at the right time. I'm just going to show you one more question that I thought was especially interesting toward the end, where they have to be able to plot points. And it lets them actually click, plot points. They have to calculate the distance between 2 points and then type an answer at the bottom. So there are protractors that come into play, sometimes rulers, and then there's a calculator and a non-calculator section. The calculator is available only when it needs to be. So they'll be using a virtual calculator for the assessment. That's just a quick overview of some of the training we did with the students. Marilyn alluded to this, but in terms of the staff feedback, overall it was very positive. They really were excited and felt like they had won something to be able to participate in this. And a lot of them said that it was nice to be able to practice this when it wasn't high stakes so that we could learn from it, so that next year they kind of had a leg up on what needed to happen. We had some minor technology glitches, and based on listservs that I've seen across the state and beyond, that actually happened everywhere. Some of it definitely had to do with park and their challenges with their software, but teachers were ready and just jumped right in. And as long as they were, and they were, calm, patient, and read the error messages, fortunately, we were able to troubleshoot and figure out how to get students back on when things happened. And they gave some good constructive feedback about what we could do to make things better for next year, and things we could share with Clark to help them understand what they might be able to do better for next year. In terms of students, and overall they truly enjoyed it, we asked them whether or not they liked the iPads or the computers, like the laptops or computers in the computer lab better. Overwhelmingly, and we tested fourth and fifth grade, and some sixth graders so far, and most of them did pick iPads. There were a few that did say they liked the computer better. They really thought the tools were cool. They liked highlighting, being able to eliminate a choice, bringing up those line readers. And they said they actually preferred typing to writing. So that was one of the questions we asked them. They're used to doing all their writing handwriting. Did you feel nervous about having to type and that your typing skills weren't okay? The kids did not seem to think that was a problem. And we thought it was really cool that they could watch a video and then answer questions about it. And there's one less passage they had to read. We took a couple actual quotes. We had the kids write responses, and we took all their papers. So I was looking through some of them and had a few highlights. One student wrote, "Art is great." Another student said, "I love the keyboard. It's the coolest." Yeah, we're being honest. My hand doesn't hurt when I type. Sometimes they're writing these long passages. By the end, their hands are hurting. Most of them thought it was better than the asked. Of course, again, it was on the computer. It's a novelty. They go ahead and take a computer-based test like this ever before. I'm curious to see if the current second graders, by the time they get to 8th grade, if they still feel the same way. I hope so. Some did say that it was challenging. The content is difficult. And they said some of their directions confused them. Their directions were really extensive. And it's the first time we were looking at them as well. In some cases, there was pages of directions that the teacher had to read to them. And by the end, some of them went, "Hey, come on, let's just take a test." So that's something we're going to continue to practice and work with to try to make sure that they're ready and see what happens next year, because the park will be making adjustments based on the feedback across the country with this. But one positive from my student that they said it's fun and exciting to take this park test. So we have a few next steps. As we mentioned earlier, there will be 2 more groups of students taking assessments. We had done the performance-based assessment first, and now the end-of-year assessment will be piloting. We'll be doing some extensive summer training in the Common Core and Park, and purchasing some more materials in terms of iPads to make sure that every 3rd and 5th grade classroom has at least 5 iPads in it, and so that every school in 6th grade has 1 laptop cart, and every team at the middle school has a laptop cart, so the kids will have more regular access to this technology for instruction as well as comparative testing. And then, a little minor note, in the computer labs, we need to purchase dividers so that when they're taking the test from a security perspective, they can't see each other's tests. One of the advantages in using a laptop or an iPad in the classroom, the desks can be moved all around the room so that kids are separated more. In the computer lab, because of all the wires, we have limits there, so we have to purchase some dividers as well. So, does anyone have any questions?
My question is, when the students are writing, is there access to spell check?
My understanding with the way it was now, and I did not see it on the pilot test, they did not have spell check as a capability. They're using software that locks down everything except for the test format, so we did not have that built into the park test.
I'm just asking because that's a hurdle sometimes for student writing.
with 2 classes, so approximately 45 to 50.
And how many is going to go?
Same thing, we had 2 classes there as well. And then at Roland, we had 2 classes. One was a self-contained class, so that class was smaller. There were about 15 students. And then we had a class of about 25, 26 kids in that class.
And who provided the training for the teachers?
I did, for the most part, working with Madeline.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that I understand that when this test is being given next year, for the 20-day window period, the entire, like, computer access for students,
During the testing window,
during that 20 days.
in the morning, while the test is being administered,
Okay, but in the afternoon, if I wanted to take my class to the computer lab or whatever, like the computers aren't going to be in a lockdown mode,
our current plan is not to do that, and unless we're told by Park that we must do that.
because what I see is that this test monopolizes the entire day for 20 days. And like they expect that everything, do you understand what I'm saying?
That is a concern.
You know, so I want to make sure that other things are, I mean, is it possible for other things to be taking place besides, you know, this test?
That is our hope as well. So that was one of the things that we really pushed for, so that during the pilot, we could test that, and we were pleasantly surprised, at least from a pilot perspective, that we did not have to lock them down in the afternoon, and classes did get to go in the labs and utilize the hardware.
And is it possible for a parent not to allow their child to take this test?
That's a great question. New Jersey does not have an official opt-in plan. There are states in the country where there is a specific procedure that a parent can opt out. That does not exist in New Jersey. So what would happen if a parent chooses to keep the child home, the child just gets marked as absent, and depending on the reason the parent gives, we would have to look at the code that is provided to us as to whether that would be an excused or unexcused absence.
So right now, you have to make up the gas test and teach this.
That is correct, and Park has a makeup window as well. And so what you would hate to see happen is a parent keeps their child home the original testing days, and then they know there's makeup, and they keep them home again. And so this is an issue. Mary, do you want to add something?
It's not anything different than gas. We have had children miss 5 days, and we have survived.
One of the discussions that occurred at the roundtable was, what are you supposed to do? You know, there are compulsory attendance laws, there's policies about how many days a child can miss under Elementary and Secondary Education Act, NCLB or whatever it's called in the year 2014. There's a participation rate that you are required to have 90% of the students participate in the assessment. There's the whole chronic absenteeism that I shared with you as part of the school performance report. So all of this is being discussed because we brought it up and asked some questions at roundtable, and Bob Bumpus, who is now the regional person, and Rich Shapura, who is for Cape May and Atlantic County, they were going to do some follow-up to give us more direction. Is there a specific response we should be giving a parent if a parent contacts us that they do not want the child to take the test? I know one of the things was if the kid comes to school, they'll just sit in the room and they could just not answer any of the questions. We want to be very careful about how we're handling that, handling it consistently, and because it is a secure test, handling it legally.
So our kids that took the test are helping the state in coming up with like a baseline?
No, that's a great question. The pilots are not scored. The purpose of the pilot was not necessarily the content side as much as it was the functionality and the fact that these were online assessments. And I want to mention two things. First of all, Marilyn and Betty made this look so much simpler
And fun.
and quicker than it actually was. But I want you to know the two of them and the Technical Services Department spent endless hours just to prepare for these few pilots. And I have to compliment the group and then working with the building administrations and the teachers. All of the preparation work made it go so well to get this positive feedback from the students and from the teachers. The one piece I also want to mention is the technology and adjusting to taking the test online and using the tools is one piece. The content in the Common Core is another piece. And Mrs. Evanson, I heard you say you would expect the scores to go up. We have been told point blank from everyone from the governor to Dr. Barry Ehrlichson, who is an assistant commissioner, from Tracy Severance, who is a lead in the DOE, do not expect the passing percentage to go up simply because the content is more rigorous. And what they encourage you to do is to focus on those student growth percentiles. They are going to have to set new baselines for the passing percentages under this new model, but the student growth can continue because it's comparing those academic peers. I will also mention that this was a presentation about the pilot. We will be back with more about the Common Core and with more about what PARC will finally look like. Now, Rebecca, did you want to add anything?
I was going to elaborate on my comment. We've had parents hesitant with me. We've had parents hesitant with us. I'm assuming we're going to have parents hesitant with this. But when we sat down with them and showed them what we're allowed to show, talked to them with their child about what they're doing, they take the test. They're afraid of something that is going to be a pass or a fail for their child for the year. And as Annette has told you numerous times at this meeting, and we've told parents numerous times, that state testing is a portion of their grade, is a portion of their assessment. It's not what makes or breaks whether they go on to the next grade level. And that seems to calm parents.
Like for a fourth grader, is the testing period the same as the ES test?
Exactly.
It's longer, like how much longer do they have these kids sitting there?
9 days total between the two.
There's two test windows.
It's 9 days of testing per child.
As opposed to 5 or
Right.
those 3
And
hours
what's
at
the
a
proper
time.
time, like for a fourth grader? Right. That's
Now,
not fair.
for the pilot in ELA, for instance,
Yes.
the minutes range from 50 minutes to 80 minutes. That's
Right.
not including additional time.
Right. Okay. Just curious, you know, what they're asking.
And the one test had 7 questions.
Right.
Part of the time was, we give them extensive time to type because they can't type very well.
Right.
So they had maybe 60 or 70 minutes, but they had 7 or 8 questions they had to answer.
Right.
So that was a piece of it too. They tried to be cognizant of that. And part of it, they're still trying to get a handle on how long it did take. That was, the kids had to fill out a survey at the end about lots of different things. And one of the questions they asked was about, did you have enough time? Were you finished really early? Were you finished but just in time? That kind of stuff.
Okay.
This is really a test of the test.
Right.
And so one of the things we've talked about is, other than the training for the teachers and students involved in the pilot, we have not done training of other students and teachers. We need to get through the ask and then really push into this in the summer and throughout next year. Other questions or comments? Steve?
Yeah, 2 things. Number one, in each building, how many or what percentage of teachers are going to be administering this next year?
Every third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and special ed and whatever else we need to cover.
Teachers' aides will be involved as well?
Just teachers are not on the test.
Okay, are teacher aides in the room able to help or no?
I'll jump in. Staff members, even teachers, it depends what you mean the word help. If you mean administer the test, right now it's certificated staff. In terms of helping the students, you're not allowed. For example, if a student, and correct me if I'm wrong with these, if a student doesn't remember how to pull down the ruler, you cannot show them how to pull down the ruler. You cannot help them with the content, nor can you help them with the technology.
Okay.
Actually, the phrase was, if you're having a problem with your device, I can help you. I can't help you with anything else.
And the second thing, this system or this type of testing, is it something that we can utilize or employ for doing testing on our own in each school?
The test math format platform itself, as is, there are sample questions and sample tests that they've provided, but that exactly the way it is something proprietary to Pearson that isn't the same, this point about it, as Vision Math and Reading Street that also happens to be Pearson. Our plan, though, is to create, and we're already talking about how we're going to do this, to simulate it as closely as possible and design our own sample assessments in addition to the ones that the state has provided.
But just to me, if this is the way we're headed, this would make sense that we could test our second and third graders in math, reading, all of our subjects, but to get them into this format, but it would also provide quicker response to our, supervisors and, get more data quickly to find out where our trouble or good areas are.
We do have students right now, starting at about first grade, and that first grade is varies from school, utilizing online assessments that are available through Pearson. They're just not the test math 8 format because there is no test math 8 format testing that we can purchase as of right now. But we do online assessments. And this first year, 2014-15, it's only going to be those 2 tests. It's called performance-based assessment, that's about March. And then the engineer assessment, that's in about May. The following year, they will have a diagnostic and mid-year test available all the way down from kindergarten up. So that's starting not until the fall of 2015. And we don't know about the cost of that at this point, but that's a possibility.
Other questions or comments? Well, again, I want to thank Marilyn and Betty for all their work, and we still have a lot of work to do on both the content side and on the testing side. But although we got selected for the pilot, but if this is what we have in the future, it was very beneficial to participate. And I'm going to stay here, as is Marilyn near the computer, because we have another presentation this evening. As the board, and I believe the public knows, there's a lot of different things surrounding the HIB legislation. And this year, the next step in that harassment, intimidation, and bullying legislation was added. We previously shared with you information about the self-assessment. The DOE has now turned this into a report card or a HIB grade. So I am going to turn back to Marilyn, who is our district anti-bullying specialist.
As Annette said, you've heard lots and lots about PIP. The latest requirement is that on every school website is a HIB report card for this year. And we've gone over the report card with you detail by detail, so this will look familiar. HIB programs, approaches, initiatives, and you see, this is our program, but every school is the same. It tells you what the score we earned and what the maximum was. Training on the board-approved HIB policy, other staff instruction and training programs, curriculum and instruction. Went too fast. Curriculum and instruction on HIB, personnel, training, HIB reporting procedures, investigation of the procedures, HIB reporting in general, and then the school grade. All of our schools are within 2 to 3 points of that 56. They're all very similar. Part of that is the fact that the anti-bullying specialists, assistant principals, and I meet monthly to talk about what we're doing, what we need to do different, to make everything pretty common. We also had to post the district grade on each of the websites, so again, that's in the same range. We feel we're doing a good job. The kids, from the feedback we're getting, feel we're doing a good job. Parents are pleased with the process, so we feel we've initiated the program well, and we're now at a nice functioning level. So since you've heard about this so many times, this one's much shorter and sweeter. Yes, sir.
How do we compare to previous years?
We are a little higher. building, we've implemented it in the other buildings. So our numbers are coming up in hip score versus hip reporting.
Just to clarify.
Yes, I heard you reading.
Quick question.
Yes.
How do we compare to other districts? I mean, 54 out of 75 is what, 64% of that. Do you look at it that way or do you not?
Well, what we look at is we look at the particulars. They ask questions like, you're training your contracted personnel, and they talk about contracted personnel we don't have. We don't have contracted food service people. We don't have contracted custodians and maintenance people.
So it's not necessarily grade.
Right. And comparison is very different because even last year, we had a bigger range because we weren't talking together about what the questions mean. We've also known back from the days where I did the EPDRS training with you, and we looked at those numbers. Sometimes some districts that we would read about in the paper had much lower numbers than us. So people report differently. We like to believe we report honestly because that way it helps us improve. Yes, sir.
I know my math is faulty as my age gets older. When I add up the maxes up there, I get 84. You have down there, grade max is 75.
I can check that in the morning. I just assumed that the numbers the state gave us were correct. I didn't recheck that as a math question.
That explains a lot.
Seriously though, I looked at that. And if, what'd you get? Say, okay. If there's something wrong with the report form, I'll give it to her next and she can get that information to you. Yes. Other questions? We're good? Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I do want to emphasize something Marilyn said. No matter what the self-assessment report is, we believe in answering honestly. And I believe we are rigorous on ourselves. Probably more rigorous than an outside group would be on us. So sometimes when you read things in the paper, you say, well, why don't we have a higher score? We have an honest score, and again, I'm always seeking to make sure that we know what really is happening and improving where we need to. So again, Matt, thank you. We have one more presentation, but I cannot believe it in a PowerPoint. So we can go back to our seats.
Thank you, ladies, for your presentation this evening. I see by the board's interaction, we were very inquisitive about what our children have been doing, how Park is all we've heard for over a year, what Park is and what it doesn't do. Now, I think I personally have a better understanding, and I do appreciate the time and effort you put in to get those, I don't know who was taking numbers, Madeline's numbers, maybe 100 students. So next year when we have 3,400 students to test, should be more interesting. Okay. Doctor?
Thank you. Item 4, you may recall that last year the Office of Fiscal Accountability and Compliance came in and spent quite an extensive amount of time in the school district, and we received one part of that report earlier in the year, and it really was an excellent report. We now have received the second portion of that report, which focuses specifically on 192 and 193 non-public funding, and I will turn it over to, without a PowerPoint, but every board member did get a handout. Turn it over to Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. I'm just going to review the report briefly. If you remember, as Dr. Giaquinto stated, both factors in the district over a year ago, and probably through this time after conducting the audit of our ASSA enrollment and student counts, as well as extraordinary aid applications. And then the final piece of their audit was the 192, 193 special education funding, which served non-public students in non-public schools within Galloway. The report for the ASSA and extraordinary aid was delivered in October. And if you remember, as a result of that report, it was calculated that the state of New Jersey actually owed the school district money. However, we were informed we would not be getting any money due to the fact that the district had excess surplus. There were some findings in this report, and the results of this report in total show that the district actually owes the state $6,132. Due to the fact that we were owed money from the other report, the state will be netting that against the amount that they, in theory, owe us. But at the end of the day, we still will not receive that money from the state. So again, 192, 193 provide special education services for students in non-public schools. They include speech and language services, compensatory education, as well as annual reviews of students' IEP educational plans. At the beginning of the meeting, all the board members were distributed a corrective action plan, which I will read only because we have to. It has to be verbally read and discussed by the group, and that will be noted in the minutes under finance. There were two sections of the report. Section 192, the board, and I'll read from the report, was funded for 57 services. On the Chapter 192 report, the board actually reported that we provided 74 services, so we were paid for 57 and provided 74. The audit actually located 69 students as being eligible for service. And being eligible doesn't mean necessarily that the student didn't exist, that we reported 74. It was the fact that the district, the special ed office, didn't necessarily have all the proper documentation that was required under the code to provide services to the student. There are a number of documents, including an application for service, as well as service delivery forms or logs that would note when the services were provided to the students. Just summarizing the audit, the net difference of 5 ineligible or unsupported services did not cause a reduction in state aid. And that's because we actually only reported the 57 services. So we were still providing services for less students than we provided service to. I see the president looking at me inquisitively. That doesn't mean that the district paid local funds for these services. We were able to provide these services with the funds, the 192 services that we were paid for during the year.
Are we allowed to amend the report to get the money?
No, we're not.
So it's a one-shot deal?
Yes, it's an annual report. And as part of the corrective action plan, the Office of Student Services will be modifying how they're tracking these services. So we can both apply and receive for the funds that we're due, and also utilize those funds properly. But at the end of the day, because of the fact that we run this program in-house, the district probably never would have utilized those funds, and we would have ended up returning them to the state anyway. Under Chapter 193, the board was funded for 126 services, and we reported 132 services provided. The audit actually identified 110 students as being eligible for service, and this is where we are getting an amount due of $6,600 or so. The net difference of 22 undocumented services resulted in a net difference of $6,132 in state aid overpayments paid by the Department of Ed. I do have a report here, if any of the board members actually want to look at it in detail, as well as the actual different classifications of service and where there are amounts due. All the amounts due are actually related to annual review, which would be the annual review of the student's IEP. And generally, again, this is because there is not a specific, which is called a 4071 form or application for service, that is filled out and maintained in student services, and then signed by different administrators in the district. So in turn, we do have a corrective action plan that we have on the agenda to approve tonight, and I'll just read through. There are 4 items on the corrective action plan. Most of these, you'll see the person responsible is the Director of Special Education. I will also be working with the Director in filing the reports to make sure that they are appropriate and reconciled to the supporting documentation. For recommendations number 1 and 2, the district will participate in the New Jersey Department of Ed Technical Assistance Session for non-public services for Chapter 192 and 193 services. That actually already occurred. Mr. Hand attended a workshop up in the Trenton area a few weeks ago. The second item is the district shall ensure that only students that meet eligibility requirements for New Jersey Code and prescribing the publication entitled Chapter 192 and 193 for non-public schools are reported on the state aid application. Item 3, the district will develop new written procedures to ensure that all students reported on the PCR, which is the project completion report, fully contain all necessary program information and this information is completed and available for review. And then finally, the district will develop new procedures to ensure that when necessary, additional funding requests are timely filed with the New Jersey Department of Education. If during mid-year we find that we have additional students that we need to provide services to that we are not funded for, we can go ahead and request additional funding for the state. This funding is a set amount on a per student basis. So if you're only funding, or if you're only servicing 5 students, just because you might, and this did not happen, if you go quote over budget, you don't get additional money from the state. The state will provide you a set dollar amount per student being served. But I do just want to emphasize the fact that, this is an area where a number of districts have issues. We actually provide this in-house instead of outsourcing it, which I feel provides savings, and it actually also provides the opportunity for us to maintain our records in a better fashion. The findings here are definitely the reason is for lack of paperwork. It is not by any means the fact that students were being serviced that did not exist. That's not what was found. It was more of a paperwork issue. And we've been working with the people who are responsible for this area to ensure that this is correct. I don't know if the board has any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
Will there be a follow-up review by the Department of Education pursuant to this 192, 193?
It is possible, but I do not expect one. Due to the fact that they're not looking at large dollars. And speaking with Mr. Hortley, who's the audit manager for the OFAC office, I think they have a number of districts that have records in much poorer shape than ours, and they have much higher dollar levels that they're looking at in other districts. It of course is possible because this is an official report from OFAC. The auditor, our district auditor, will be looking at this as part of their annual audit because they're required to comment on any audits that are issued by the state during the year.
Okay. Any other board members have any questions, comments? Any public members have a comment on the audit presented? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Superintendent's report.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the charter's report, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Capuccio.
Thank you. Regarding student residency, there were various forms that we completed, including a universal form that is now being used. Marilyn Ward, Keith Spencer, and I prepared together, and should be giving us more of a grasp on the way to determine actual residency from renters. As you know, the ACLU published leaves in the schools in the area. I believe they're not using the letter of the law in determining student residency in satisfaction for students. But the superintendent and I have ongoing discussions and have notified the board of any problems. After review of our current policy and forms, we see no real problems at this time as far as satisfaction of what they were even talking about. Student matters in due process. There are no legal matters that have not been handled by Mr. Hannion's office to date. Disability rights, no action at this time. Construction, Mr. Kelly has kept the board abreast, by his notices the roofing bids are due this Thursday, and there's no legal questions at this time. And regarding personnel, there are certain issues to discuss in closed session, but I will defer to the superintendent, since last time we've handled most of them at this time. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Capuccio on the board? Thank you, Mr. Capuccio.
Thank you. The next item is the student enrollment report. As of March 31st, 2014, in district we had 3,355 students. When we add in students at special services, private schools, on home instruction, or in one of the charter or choice schools, the grand total increases to 3,464 students. Item 3 was the out-of-school suspension report for March. And item 4 is a resolution to accept, modify, or reject the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report presented to the board on March 17th for the reporting period from February 20 through March 12, 2014.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report that was presented to this board on the 17th of March 2014 for the reporting period from February 20, 2014 through March 12, 2014, please? We have coffee tonight? Is there any board discussion? Any public comment? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Evanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
Mr. Schwanger?
Yes.
Mr. Carmen?
Yes.
Mr. North? Mrs. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Days?
Yes.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Hubbard?
Yes.
Thank you.
Curriculum and instruction, please.
Yes, item 1 is a resolution to approve home instruction for the following students. Each student's ID, the school of attendance, and the dates and reasons are listed. Resolution 2 is to approve supplemental instruction or extension of a student's school day per the student's IEP. The account number is listed, as are the student numbers. Resolution 3 is to approve homeschooling for the remainder of the school year for the following students in accordance with board policy, alternative education programs. The school the student normally would attend, the ID number, the effective date, and the grade are listed. Resolution 4 is to approve a Stockton College student for field work placement. It's called the summer semester, but it actually finishes up the end of our school year. Resolution 5 is to approve the following Rowan University student for clinical practice, and this is for the fall 2014 semester. The student, the cooperating teacher, the school and grades and dates are listed. Resolution 6 is to approve the following Wheeling Jesuit University student for a 40-hour fieldwork request, and this is for this spring semester. Again, all the details of the student, cooperating teacher, etc. are listed. Resolution 7 is to approve the Galloway Township Middle School Student Council, their trip to the Veterans Memorial Park at Glen by the Bay. This is their annual recognition picnic on June 6, 2014. And I should note that the transportation is being provided at no cost by Integrity Transportation. Resolution 8 is to approve the Galloway Township Middle School 8th grade class trip to Outdoor World on June 10th with the rain date of June 11th. And these transportation costs are funded by the Family School Association. And finally, in this section, is to approve 3rd and 4th grade GEM students to attend the district-wide Odyssey of the Mind competition. We're hosting it at Reed's Road School, and this is on May 22nd and May 23rd. And again, there's complimentary transportation by Integrity.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 through 9, inclusive under curriculum and instruction, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Any board discussion?
Yes, I would like to compliment the gym teachers and Mr. Hinman for getting the Odyssey of the Mind started this year. They applied for a grant for the Ed Foundation, and we funded that. And I encourage board members to attend this. It's really a neat competition that involves a lot of science and logical thinking. And it's the 22nd and 23rd at Reed's Road. I think you'll really enjoy that if you get time to see it.
And Mr. Norrie made a move to myself to send board members the times.
Beverly?
I want to compliment for offering this. I think it also speaks to the more positive transportation you're getting. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any public comment? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. North?
Yes.
Mr. Days?
Yes.
Mr. Schwanger?
Yes.
Harmon?
Yes.
Mrs. Evanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Hubkey?
Yes. Thank you. Finance and school operations, please.
Yes, let's run the agenda back to Mr. Kelly.
Thank you very much. Item 1 is a resolution to approve the fiscal year 2012-2013 IDEA final report. For each section, basic and preschool, the total expenditures are listed. As I think I noted at the end of the week, this is a little bit delayed, and this is due to some new software that was rolled out from the state of New Jersey this year. Item 2 is a resolution to acknowledge, review, and discussion of the Chapter 192, 193 Auxiliary Services for Non-Public Students Fiscal Year 2011-2012 report, as submitted by the State of New Jersey Department of Education Office of Fiscal Accountability and Compliance, dated March 21, 2014, and to approve the corrective action plan related to this report. Pursuant to New Jersey Code, a copy of this report will be posted, and the board's corrective action plan will also be posted to the district's website. Item 3, a resolution to approve payout nursing services to provide a student with an IED certified nurse. The cost per hour not to exceed 8 hours per day, the dates and account are listed. Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the award of non-fair and open contracts. Whereas the Galloway Township Board of Education has a need to acquire services and supplies as non-fair and open contracts pursuant to the provisions of New Jersey statute as appropriate, and whereas the purchasing agent has determined and certified in writing that the value of acquisition will exceed $17,500, and whereas the anticipated term of this contract for the 13-14 school year may be extended by the Galloway Township Board of Education as approved, whereas the following businesses as listed below have completed and submitted a business entity disclosure certification, which certifies that the businesses listed below have not made any reportable contributions to a political or candidate member in the previous 1 year, and that the contract will prohibit the business, as listed below, from making any reportable contributions through the term of the contract. Now therefore be it resolved, the Galloway Township Board of Education and the Township of Galloway authorizes the school business administrator to enter into a contract with businesses as listed below and described herein. And be it further resolved, the business disclosure entity certifications and determination of value be placed on file. For each vendor, the vendor name is listed and the cost of the contract is listed. I discussed this written to the board at the end of the week as far as our requirement to have these on file for the New Jersey Better Limits and pay-to-play regulations.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 through 4 inclusive on the finance and school operations, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any board discussion? Does everybody understand about the pay-to-play regulation? I know we do this every year. Okay.
And just, I also wrote to the board, and I will note that there were no reportable contributions on any vendors that we received.
I got my first and second, right?
Yes, you
Okay. Can I have a roll call, please?
did. Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
Mr. Schwanger?
Yes.
Mr. Harmon?
Yes.
Mrs. Evanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Days? Thank you. Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Hubkey?
Yes. Facilities and maintenance, please.
Continuing on, 2 items. Item 1 is a resolution to approve change order number 1 from Winchester Roofing Corporation for roofing replacement work at Arthur Rand Elementary School for a decrease in the amount of $29,369. Original contract was $1,139,000. Revised contract amount is $1,109,631. The business administrator certifies availability of funds for the revised contract amount. Item 2 is to approve a change order for Asphalt Paving Corporation for the parking lot and stormwater sewer replacement at Arthur Rand Elementary School for a decrease in the amount of $1,615. Original contract of $328,971 and revised contract amount of $327,356. The business administrator certifies the availability of funds for the revised contract amount.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items 1 and 2 under facilities and maintenance, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any board discussion? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Harmon? Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
Mr. Davis? Mr. North?
Yes.
Mrs. Evanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Avery? Mr. Schwanger?
Yes.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Thank you. And then just finally, an informational item. pre-bid meeting was held April 2nd at the district office. I was a little disappointed. Unfortunately, we only had one potential bidder show up at that event. I did feel a little better after I was told that the reason why was that there were 7 different bid openings that day across the state of New Jersey for roofing projects. So it made sense why there weren't that many people there, but that also means there's a lot of work out on the street. So we will see how bids come in on this project. I will also just remind the board and the public that the scheduled bid opening is at 11 o'clock this Thursday, April 17th, and that's for the roofing replacements at Roland Rogers and the Smithville Elementary School. I will be advising the board as far as the preliminary results of the bid either late Thursday.
Thank you. Community school facilities.
Yes, we have one informational item this evening. The Cadet Girl Scout Troop 12210 will conduct an Arthur Rand schoolyard cleanup on April 23rd. And this is in the evening, 6:15 to 7:30 p.m. in recognition of Earth Day.
Good news. Personnel, please.
Yes, item 1 is to accept a letter of intent to retire from Patricia Lesage, teacher at Ridgewood Elementary School with regret, effective July 1st, 2014. Ms. Lesage has worked in the Galloway Township Public School District for 22 years, and her dedication and commitment to students and staff are appreciated by our entire school family.
Can I have a motion to accept item number 1 under personnel, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any board discussion? Any public comment? Yes, Rose.
Let me just something to say, it's very sad, and she's a very, very important teacher.
Any public comment? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hallway?
Yes.
Mr. Nord?
Yes.
Mrs. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Schweiner?
Yes.
Mr. Carmen?
Yes.
Mrs. Edmondson?
Yeah.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 2 is a resolution to approve the maternity leave request from Andrea Dare, teacher at Galloway Township Middle School, and the dates as well as the terms and conditions are listed. Resolution 3 is to approve the extended family leave request from Anne Marie Donahue, teacher at Ridgewood Elementary School, and again, the terms and the dates are listed. Resolution 4 is to approve the maternity family leave request from Corey K. Tucciaroni, classroom assistant at Arthur Grant Elementary School. The dates and terms and conditions are listed. Resolution 5 is to ratify the adjusted start date for Mary Ann Zielinski from March 31st, 2014 to March 17th, 2014. This is a long-term leave position at Smithville. Resolution 6 is to approve the salary adjustment for Michael Hinman, supervisor of curriculum instruction and assessment for the 2013-14 school year, effective April 15, 2014 through June 30, 2014. The prorated salary is listed, and this is for earning the degree status of Master's Plus 45. Resolution 7 is to approve Doris Pico as a part-time resource center teacher at Arthur Grant Elementary School for the 2013-14 school year, effective April 7 through June 30, 2014. The salary, the steps, and terms and conditions are listed, and this is a new position due to an increase in the number of resource center students. Resolution 8 is to approve David Josephson, as a head custodian at Smithville Elementary School for the 2013-14 school year, effective April 15 through June 30, 2014. The terms and conditions are listed. This is a replacement position. Resolution 9 is to approve the following substitute teachers for the 2013-14 school year, effective April 15 through June 30, 2014, pending successful completion of the criminal history review. The various account numbers are listed, as are the names of each individual, whether or not the individual is certified, and the daily rate. Resolution 10 is to approve the following substitute custodian for the 2013-14 school year, effective April 15 through June 30, 2014. The hourly rate and account are listed, as are the names of the individuals. Resolution 11 is to approve the following staff members for extracurricular activity, extension of student school day, per the IEP, for the remainder of the year. This is an hourly rate of $34.59. The account is listed. You'll note that is an IDBA account, as is the name of the staff member. Resolution 12 is to approve the following teachers for supplemental instruction extension of the student's school day per IEP for the remainder of the year. This is a $37 per hour rate. Again, the account is listed, as are the names of the individuals. Resolution 13 is to approve the following step for summer POPs, which begins June 30th through August 6th at Galloway Township Middle School. The stipend is listed as is the account. I will remind you this is an enterprise account through community education. Resolution 14 is to approve the following staff for summer theater program, which also begins on June 30th and runs through August 1st, 2014, also held here at GTMS. Again, the stipend, hourly rate, and account are listed. Again, this is an enterprise account for community education and the names of the staff members involved.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items number 2 through 14 inclusive on the personnel, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Any public comment? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dorn? Mr. Schweiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Carmen?
Yes.
Mrs. Edmondson?
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
Mr. Days?
Let's stay on number 2 and ask them anything else.
Thank you. Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Humphrey?
Yes. Thank you. Policy, please.
Yes, we have one policy this evening. It is the Chief School Administrator evaluation. I know that Mr. Bucky was in contact with the members of the policy committee. Mrs. Edmondson is the chair. This is a first reading and the changes are highlighted. The basic changes are really references to code as opposed to the content itself.
Thank you. Beverly?
I think it's self-explanatory, and it's highlighted for your.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item number 1 under policy, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Any board discussion? Any public comment? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Days?
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Edmondson?
Yes.
Mr. Schweiner?
Yes.
Mr. Noor?
Yes.
Mr. Carmen?
Yes.
Mrs. Avery?
Yes.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Humphrey?
Yes. Those are meetings, please.
Yes, our next board meeting is on Monday, April 28th, and I should note that is first a public budget hearing and then a regular board meeting, and that begins at 7 p.m. We then have listed our 2 meetings for May, the 19th, 12th, excuse me, and the 19th. And then after many looks at the calendar, we will have one board meeting in June that will be held on June 16th. You may recall we originally had June 23rd, but that is the evening of the middle school promotional ceremonies. So we opted to go earlier in the month rather than at the end of the month.
Correct. Special events, please.
Yes, we have quite a few special events. Some events particular to a certain school. One is the Elementary Honors Band Festival, which actually is students from all over the area, and this year it happens to be held at Absegami. I will also make note of the retirement reception. We have not put out the flyer yet. We find out which retirees are actually attending, and then we put out the flyer. So for those of you that are always interested in coming, please mark your calendars and more details will be out soon. The various spring concerts are listed, as are which team is at which time for the promotional ceremonies on June 23rd.
Thank you. I'd just like to remind the board members of these special events. We'd like to see as many of you come out and participate as you can on the promotional ceremonies. I know this is still 2 months away, but start thinking about which ceremony, if you'd like to participate with which one, so that we can work a schedule out. Don't need any answers tonight, but I know that we'll need to go in May, so we can finalize it. Okay, public comment. Is there any public comment to come before this Board of Education this evening? If you have public comment, I please ask that you come to the microphone, state your name, state if you're a Galloway resident, and you have 5 minutes.
Get the severe threat. This year, it's probably to the year, 31 pages of threats, 32 missed phone calls, text messages. The police are involved.
Okay, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, I'm not rude. I need some advice from our attorney right now.
Yeah, we actually, because of confidentiality and obligation and liability and possible exposure to something that may be improper, we can't let individual names out. Have you gone through the administration yet?
Yes,
You have one?
yes.
Not me.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I dealt with.
The principal here?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm trying to protect everybody, if you please.
That's okay, I understand where you're coming from because I can't get too many questions answered myself. My concern is, the reason that I'm here tonight is, again, the child was suspended from school. My concern is the child's back in school. As a parent, I have no right to either get a restraining order against this child or anything because the school is handling it. I spoke with the officer at this rate. The officer did tell me that there will be a court date that I supposedly will not be aware of. So my number one question is, who attends the court date?
I don't know what you're talking about as far as court date for anything.
Galloway Township Middle School signed a complaint against this child through Galloway Township Police Department. So when this child goes in front of a judge, who from GTMS or the Board of Education, who goes on behalf of the school?
That depends on the administration and who they have to go. You have to go through the administration up to Dr. J. Quinto if necessary to find out.
So how do I do that?
You have to go through the administration for the school itself and then for the superintendent's office.
Yeah, what I would suggest to you is if you've already spoken to Ms. Kurtz, if you contact me.
I've gotten as far as Mr. Silvateri.
Okay. I mean, the chain of command would be to go to Ms. Kurtz next to speak with her. If you are not satisfied with that.
It's not that I'm not satisfied. My question is my concern for my son, and at this rate, probably every other student here at GTMS.
And ma'am, not knowing who the child is, nor being able to allow you to name the child in this setting, I can't do anything for you tonight. Other than,
I mean, I have a printout.
I understand that, but we cannot discuss another child
I'm not
publicly.
asking. I'm just asking who I need to go to know that my son will be safe here in this school.
And what I'm saying to you is you start at the building level, and if you are not satisfied with the answer of the
I can't
principal.
get any answers because it's all confidential.
Can I suggest Dr. Giaquinto meet with you and Mrs.
That's what I'm trying to
Mrs. Kurtz,
suggest.
who is our full-time superintendent here, who can answer these questions
That would
in
be
a
great.
private setting?
That would be fine.
That will hopefully put your mind at ease. And then if you want to come back to us, if you want to come back to us, then we as a Board of Education have the final say. And at that time, there's a procedure that has to be followed. Whether it can be done in public, has to be done in private, but there's a protocol, and I would please encourage you. Dr. Giaquinto is best qualified at this point to be one to talking to.
Okay. I just want to make sure this doesn't, go under the rug or doesn't get pushed.
You put none of us on notice now, so.
And I need you to understand, every suspension does get reported to the Board of Education in a document. They do not see names, they see student numbers, they see grade levels, they see basic things. If it is a case that I feel they need to know more, I actually advise them in the weekly board bulletin. I was not aware that there was a parental question or concern. I will add, even in a private setting, there are things I can share with you, and there are things I cannot share
I
with you.
understand.
But certainly
as a parent, I feel like my hands are tied
Sure,
because
I understand
it's
that.
in the hands of GTMS. So in the meantime, what do I do? Because now this child's back in school, so of course my fear is something's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's where going to the principal, talking to me, are the next steps.
Okay.
If you want to hang out, because the meeting's almost over, if you'd like to give me your contact information,
Great.
we'll follow up, so you don't have to worry about connecting with one of us.
Okay.
This particular situation, how long will it go on?
It happened April 1st.
So it's relatively recent.
It is recent. There was a suspension, and again, he's back in school. So to my notification,
Hasn't been a year long.
No, I don't think this will be believe me, so you know, and the public knows when something like this comes up, Dr. Giaquinto provides us a weekly update of what happens in the school
Okay.
district,
okay.
without giving us names or something, for even
I
if
understand.
somebody
No, I completely
gets
understand.
trips and has to leave with an ambulance, I mean, we know.
Right.
So, please allow her to meet with the principal and let her do a little investigation
That'd
work.
be great.
And then if something needs to come forward to this board because of your unsatisfaction with the way it was handled, then we'll tell you, along with our attorney, the process that we must adhere to.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Going around the board. And tonight, let's start with Madeline. Thank you. Rich?
Well, like I say, excuse me, I attended the little Miss Mermaid, the little Miss Mermaid Junior. And I congratulate and we stand to advise and help the children. And that's why I want to see town, middle school students. They look great.
Yes, they are. George? Thank you. Dave?
The question I have, real quick, for Tim. How many big packages were sold for the project?
Last I heard from the architect, there were 5 for each project that were picked up.
What do we have for 311?
It was more than 5, I don't remember the total number of that.
Beverly?
I have 2 things. First of all, we attended the Education Foundation dinner and was really impressed with this year's The second thing is, I've heard that the Noise Museum website now includes a link to the schools where we have art projects and all this way of noise. And that's thanks to Mr. Inman, supervisor, and also to the art teachers. The last one I heard about was for Smithville School. And I think that that's a wonderful achievement.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
John?
Well, it's good to be back again. I brought good weather, except for what's in snow, possibly even what. I got back in time to review, or to go through the budget review process with George and Mr. Kelly and Dr. Giaquinto. And it was well done, answered a few questions we had, and it really worked well, I thought.
Thank you. Suzette? Okay, I have a couple comments. A, The Little Mermaid Junior, excellent production. My mind's going bad, so I don't remember, was it a band festival since the last meeting, or did we already not that?
No, there was a band festival. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going. And then lastly, for my fellow board members, Dr. Netzi Giaquinto's annual evaluation should have been the link should have been all emailed to you all from New Jersey School Boards Association. I'm setting a deadline of the 9th of May. Okay, the 9th of May for it to be completed. And at that time, what we'll do historically, I'll write Dr. Giaquinto, and then we'll go through our normal processes. We'll discuss the comments, we'll discuss her evaluation, we'll then write up a written evaluation. We'll pass it around to the board, make our comments, correct the grammar, if Mr. Nordman, and then resubmit it, and then I'll get it to Dr. Giaquinto in time for legally being submitted. Okay? So I just want to be, so everybody knows that that's the deadline. Do we have any closed session tonight, Bill?
I don't.
We do not.
No, we did not. Yeah, we don't. Okay, this is the last call for anything to come before the Board of Education this evening. Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it.